This video is sponsored by Surfshark.
Hello and welcome to my channel. The following video was recorded as a part of a podcast series I wanted to start on this channel called It's a Safe Space Because I Said So. And in that series, I was going to just be discussing some things that were on my mind as I closed out my 40th year of life. This year I turned 40 and I was not at all where I thought I was going to be in my life in any way. I oscillated most of the year between being really proud of myself for different things that I'd done and also feeling really lost and like I hadn't accomplished anything at all. So the subject of the video you're about to see is based on this idea that came into my mind when I was thinking about who I am as a creator in their 40s, who I am as a woman in her 40s. Well, not in my 40s yet, but at 40. And I thought to myself one day, I'm not yet an auntie, but I'm not a girly. And I know the title of Auntie has been a very much contested title over the past year, and I talk about that in the video. But for me, the title of Auntie is not so much it's not something that you receive just because you reach a certain age. There are certain qualifications and ramifications tied to it. And I feel the same way about calling yourself a girly, which is something that the internet has taken on. It's nomenclature the internet has taken on and used to define people who are still figuring out the mysteries of girlhood well into, I would say, their early to late 20s. And in fact, any woman on the internet now, no matter her age, refers to herself as a girly in some kind of facetious way to sort of infantilize herself and also to at the same time give herself permission to still be getting there. I feel like when you're an auntie, the idea is that you've gotten there, but when you're a girly, you're still getting there. And I feel like I'm somewhere in between. So this is a video where I explore that idea and I talk about those two differences and how I see that. But before I get started, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Surfshark. A big part of being a content creator is being able to research ideas about what in the heck you're going to talk about. This means that I have to watch a lot of different types of content and I might have to do some research and be looking into things. Because of that, my search might take me to different places, and it helps to have a VPN like Surfshark in order to protect my research process. Researching is such an important part of coming up with content. There's tons of search engines you can use, but you want to make sure you're safe. Surfshark can help you encrypt your data to protect you when researching in public places. What if you need to change your location? Surfshark can also help you scour resources that might be international or not available to you otherwise. You can also use Surfshark for protection when it comes to your desktop devices, because we all know we don't always research things on our phones. Surfshark enables you to feel free searching for those things on the web that are going to help you connect with others. If you would like to try Surfshark for yourself, you can go to surfshark.com/ostefco and get 4 extra months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. So the episode you're about to watch the video you're about to watch comes from a time where I was trying to figure out, where do I fit in the content space? What can I even talk about? What do people even want to hear from me? And this wouldn't be so hard if I knew what damn demographic I fit into. Am I this? Am I this? Like, where do I fit? So without further ado, here is the first episode of my never launched podcast. It's a safe space because I said so. And the episode was going to be called I'm Not a Girly and Not Yet an Auntie. And here it is. Hello and welcome to something a little bit different from my corner of the internet. My 40th year has been nothing like I expected. I was surprised at many points during this year, and there are so many different lessons that I've learned coming from my late 30s into 40. And I just thought I would take a moment and share them with you all in kind of like a bulk way. I decided to present this to you all as a podcast. And, it's my first time doing something like this on the channel. Also, I'm excited that I have one of these little mics. It makes me feel really professional. If you are watching or just listening to this and you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a new microphone and you can see it on screen. This episode is called Not a Girl, Not Yet an Auntie. And in this episode, I am going to be talking about how I have dealt with the concept of what it means to be 40 in society and how I have started to define that for myself here at the tail end of my experience as a 40-year-old woman. So I want to start off by saying when I first turned 40, I became very aware of the fact that I was now in Auntie territory. The word Auntie is a highly contested label on social media lately. The situation that sticks out to me the most regarding this is when content creator, makeup guru, candle lady extraordinaire, Jackie Aina came out and said that she did not want to be referred to as Aunt Jackie anymore and started blocking people and really, really taking a stand whenever people did not abide by that. And a lot of people didn't understand because they grew up with her content. Jackie's been on the internet now almost 20 years. And a lot of people were like, yo, you referred to yourself as Aunt Jackie. And I think Jackie went through something that a lot of women do, which is realizing that as you get older, society actually makes you feel so badly for aging that it's not as cool to refer yourself in elder terms. So, for example, when you're a young woman in your 20s, it's cute to stay at home and refer to yourself as a grandma. But when you turn 35 years old and you're at home on a Friday night, now you are a cat lady who's going to die alone. You are a spinster. Like with age, certain titles carry much more of a negative connotation in society. And so I think that's one reason why she pushed back. The next reason is that it gives her a authority or a position in people's lives that she doesn't necessarily want to hold. She talked about and did a couple of interviews about this where she basically said, listen, I've always been kind of elderfied in my life, and now I just want to be me and exist in my own skin. And personally, I want to say that in cultures that I know that use the term auntie, I remember the makeup content creator. Her name was Farrah something. I don't remember her last name. I will put it up here on the screen. So for those of you listening, her name was Farrah, and she was, her and her husband Sal had a company called Farsali, and they did, and they might still, I think it still exists, but they were really popular in like the 2016, 2017, heyday of makeup. And they would do like these unicorn drops and other things for the skin and these primers and whatever. And, they are just known for how much Sal loves Farrah, and then she has some fertility issues. Anyway, Farrah, she is Indian, and she would talk about how the judgmental aunties would always have something to say about her weight or about how she hasn't had kids yet. And I know that in other cultures, that is how aunties are looked at. They are judgmental. They're over opinionated. They are desexualized. They're past their sexual prime. They're these old sort of harpies that sit inside of every culture and do a lot of code checking and policing of the behaviors of women younger than them. That is a perception. An auntie is also somebody that is, very sweet and very someone people can look up to. She's a soft place to land outside of, your parents, your mom and your dad. There's also the rich auntie label, right? It's somebody to look up to who lives a lifestyle that's not necessarily tied down by the normal domestic expectation. So there's a lot of different ways to look at that title. But for sure, I know Jackie pushed back and was like, don't call me that no more. And I was absolutely on her side. I have never been somebody who has enjoyed being elderfied, even though I have done that to myself plenty of times. And I noticed that when I was younger, I did it more. So, for example, if I was going to be turning 35, I would tell people, well, it is going to be my 57th birthday. So when you're younger, age is something that you can make fun of and kind of make a farce out of, if you will. It's funny to say, like I said earlier, oh my God, I'm such a grandma. I'm at home on a Friday night. When you're younger, being old is so far away that it's just something that you make jokes about and move on from. But as you get closer and closer to ages where it's like, oh, wait, no, I actually could be a grandmother. Oh, I could definitely be a mama by now. And I could definitely be an auntie. It becomes less and less, I want to say, enjoyable to kind of adopt certain terms for yourself. So I understood where Jackie was coming from. And as I got to 40, I knew that I was in auntie territory. And I didn't feel like I aligned with that at all. I didn't feel old enough to be called auntie because I didn't really feel old enough to even be 40. When I look around at other content creators and other people just in my life, and they are 40 years old. Well, actually, in my life is different than the internet, but it's also kind of the same. Definitely on the internet, when I think of a 40-year-old content creator, I think of somebody that makes content around their family, being a mom or being a parent, having kids. I think of somebody that makes content around their career. So by 40, you have accomplished, a great deal in your career space, and you're here to mentor the young people. I think of somebody that just in general is seen as someone who's passing down a lot of advice because they've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. They are in some way a credible authority about life. By the time they get to be 40 years old, there is an expectation that you have done a certain amount of things. And when I turned 40, I was like, if I got a report card for my life at this point, I feel like I would check off did not meet expectations. And as a result, I cannot be thought of as an auntie. I cannot, I don't fit the label. And so that kind of was a moment of confusion for me. I know as a content creator, I was like, where do I belong? Over on TikTok, for example, there is a movement to do or to bring in people who are over 40 and do an over 40 TikTok. Come over here. We're fine over here. Inviting people over is something that people will do because TikTok is an app for like the youths. And sometimes if you're older than like 30, people make you feel like you're on your deathbed over there. So I really appreciated people who were over 40 and up, like raising their voices and saying, hey, come join, if you're a content creator and this is your age range, come on and join us. But when I was looking at the content creators and I was looking at the people that I guess I was in the age range to make community with, I really just did not feel like I belonged at all. Once again, it was a lot of moms, talking about their kids. I don't have kids. Well, I have two fur babies, but it's not the same. It was people that had extensive experience in real estate and investing their money, and they could help out people that had extensive experience in luxury fashion and buying and selling luxury goods, that were making videos from their closets about their like expensive perfume and their clothes, people that were talking about their marriages and relationships. Like I just felt like I'm not old enough to be here. I don't think I belong here. And then on the other side, right? I'm definitely not a girly. If you've been on the internet for the past year or so, a very popular term for defining women is putting us all under this label of girly. Hey, if you're a lip gloss girly, are you a earrings girly? Hey, everybody, I'm a wig girly. The term kind of throws me off because I'm like, I'm 40. Am I still a girly? Like, am I still able? And I say it anyway. I really do. But I always feel a little bit cringe when I say that, when I describe myself that way, because I am not a girl. I am a 40-year-old woman. And there are a lot of things that I do find happening online and happening in social media spaces that I can't relate to because I'm older. So I can't relate to what the 40-year-olds got going on. And I also cannot relate to what people younger than that have going on. So for example, conversations about, I'm gonna put it like this. It's not that I can't relate to it. A lot of times it's that I have already been there, done that. I've walked that road. I've answered those questions for myself. I'm moving on. So for example, I have had natural hair since 2002. So the other day I went to go eat at a restaurant and my waitress was born in 2002. And did you know that if you were born in 2002, you are a whole 22 years old, like you a grown adult. So I've been out of college. I've been out of high school for 22 years. And one of the things I did for myself when I got out of high school was I went full natural. So I was wearing 2-strand twists and experimenting with my hair and how much it could grow and whatever, all through the 2010s, really. And then from 2010 to about 2020, I got into learning how to apply wigs and learning how to do my own braids and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, you probably have guessed that timeline is a little bit off. So to be clear, when I was 18 years old, I went natural in 2002. From 2002 till about 2012, I just rocked natural hairstyles. I would do two-strand twists, Afro kinky twists, different braid installs. I didn't really ever do like the silk press thing because I have boneless hair, which means that when it is blown out, and it is flat ironed, there's not a whole lot going on. So my silk press is not exciting. And also, I was in the South where it's really humid, and so I would have a silk press one day, and then the next day it would be giving um somebody she it would look like I got caught in the rain. So I never really did the silk press thing, but I did a lot of other natural hairstyles. Bantu knots. I used to have a video up on somewhere where I talked about my entire history with my hair and everything I had done. But by the time the 2010s hit, I started getting into learning how to learning what kind of wigs to buy, if I wanted to take a break, and also learning how to do and install my own hair, namely like crochet styles, because it was really easy once I learned to like braid my hair back to just put in some crochet. So basically what I'm saying is until 2010, I was just mostly experimenting with my hair, buying products, learning what worked. From 2010 to about 2020, moving on to different kinds of experimentation. But that is almost 22 years of natural hair experiments and experience and different trials and whatever. So that's the timeline there. It wasn't, I didn't go natural and then skip to 2010. I was natural I'm still natural today. My hair's been not permed and untouched, but I just wanted to clear up the timeline. So, all right. And now as a 40-year-old woman, I'm like, do whatever works for you. And so when I see young women get online, and I think it's one thing when you are just trying to figure out what your hair is, like what can I do with this? But I've already been through the socio cultural politics of people equating your character with, number one, how comfortable you are with your hair texture. So if you have 4C hair and you don't have like 3B or 3A curly hair that you can just spray water on and go, but you have 4C hair, so you got to get in that bathroom and do, the equivalent of a upper arm workout to get your hair done. And you mention, oh my gosh, like this sucks. I'm so tired. I wish I had an easier texture of hair. The way people come out and say, yo, there's nothing wrong with your hair. You shouldn't feel that way, etc. I'm old. I've had natural hair for years. I've fought my hair texture in the bathroom on Sundays for years. I'm sitting up here telling you, look, I love my hair. It's a part of me, but also wishing that I could just spray water on it and run a quick brush through it and go. That doesn't make me an evil person. Putting on a wig so I don't have to worry about, okay, let me braid it down, let me put it up, let me make sure it's good. That doesn't make me an evil person. Not wanting to launch into a discussion of how many different ways I can wear my hair, that doesn't make me an evil person. Like at this age, I have had almost every hairstyle. I've been bald twice. And so when I see young people talking about this, I'm like, I did this 20 years ago. I don't care. And I didn't think I would ever say this, but, well, I don't know. I was going to say it's just hair, but it's never just hair. Hair has a lot of ramifications to it. But when it comes to you and what you want to do, it's very personal. And as long as it's not actively causing harm to your body, I do have some opinions about perms. But as long as it's not actively causing harm to your body, it's fine. You're fine. And so when I see people having these conversations, I'm like, oh my God, this is a rerun. Like we did this 20 years ago. I remember people thinking that they were holier than thou, better than everybody because they were wearing their hair natural, talking down to folks because they weren't natural yet. Like I remember learning so much about what to do with my hair when natural hair YouTube first took off like 10 years ago. So it's things like that where I'm like, damn, I'm old. I'm not riding this train again. Another example is when people are figuring out, the certain politics around dating. I'm not going to get too into that, but I do think that certain conversations are age dependent. So, for example, the obsession people have with being a stay-at-home mom, so they can take, meeting someone so they can be a stay-at-home mom to take care of the kids. I'm 40 and I'm a single woman and I won't have children. So that is something that I immediately just swipe up on. And as a result, because I'm 40 and I'm a single woman and I won't have children, I end up swiping up on a lot of dating stuff because a lot of dating topics and conversations online, at least in the online space, are definitely age dependent. If you haven't found this by this age, a lot of the conversation does not need to be had anymore, in my opinion. So not only the conversation around wanting to meet a wealthy provider so you can be a stay-at-home mom, but the conversation around having a child before you get married. I remember, and I've changed my stance on this ever since seeing how popular it has become, unfortunately, for young women, young starlets, before they even turn 25 to have a baby with a man they're not married to. That actually breaks my heart a little bit. I don't like seeing that, the Sky Jacksons and I don't want to go into detail in this particular podcast episode, but I hate that. That is heartbreaking. But I remember when I was first talking about pregnancy, and wanting to be a single mom by choice before I discovered that I wouldn't be able to do it. And there was a lot of, in certain corners of the internet, people were coming down so hard on single moms that I was like, I don't think the internet would be a safe place for me to have my journey, because most of the conversation around being single mom is rooted in shame and is rooted in letting down the community. And if you happen to be a Black woman like I am, you're letting down the entire Black community if you decide to become a single mom by choice. And so I had wanted, if I had gone down that road, I was going to be open about it and talk about it on my channel. But I remember getting some really interesting comments on some initial videos I made. And when I found out that I couldn't go down that road, I was like, well, I guess it's a kind of a good thing, because the internet's actually kind of hateful, because they're looking at motherhood and roads and paths to motherhood as if everybody is a 25-year-old woman who has all the time in the world to make these decisions. I think one thing that younger women don't consider a lot of the times is, even if you want to meet this person, you want to meet this partner, sometimes you don't meet them in time. And so if you want to become a mother, which is something people still want to do, you might take that journey and do it by yourself. And that is a conversation I feel that becomes really relevant around 35 years old. And so it's not a conversation for the girlies. And so I generally feel really out of place whenever people are talking about motherhood and who they're dating and why they're picking this person and what does this person bring to the table, because a lot of those conversations center around archaic domestic roles that men and women are supposed to play, and those roles revolve around responsibilities concerning reproduction. If I see it all the time, a woman will say, or a young woman will post, so I'm supposed to go 50-50 with you and raise your kids, whatever. When I think about the 50-50 conversation, I'm like, well, since we won't be raising kids together, is it so wrong that we both put in equally? I don't think it is. I think once you hit an age where reproduction is no longer on the table, the whole conversation about dating needs to be altered a little bit. There's new aspects here. It's changed now. And so I don't feel at home in the girly space, because I'm like, I don't have the same worries or circumstances as you anymore. Now I'm different. I'm in a new world. And yet, as a 40-year-old woman, I don't feel at home in the 40-year-old space, because all of them are married. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people are married. And the weirdest thing? The weirdest thing is when you come across like a 40-year-old content creator, and this is something that I'm trying to grow out of, but it's hard. But you come across a 40-year-old content creator, I would say between 40 and 45, and it hasn't hit us yet that we are not the girlies anymore, that we are older. And everybody's body is different. Everybody's aging differently. But sometimes when things don't happen, your mind doesn't age. So you'll come across somebody that's 45 years old and they're still like, well, when I meet my husband and I have kids, and it's like, can you still do you? I mean, if you can, that's great. But if you, and the stories vary so much that sometimes it's hard to find community in that space. And I find that a lot of times when things haven't happened by a certain age, your mind doesn't grow up. So you'll run into a 42-year-old, 43-year-old woman, and they're still thinking about marriage and kids and everything the same way that they did when they were in their 20s, because they never crossed that box off. And so it just stayed with them. And so they never grew out of it. A big question for me that I have at this age of my life is, okay, because I never got to do those things, how do I grow up? That's a huge question that I have. I look at the act of maturation, and I think that it is related to wisdom that is gained from experience a lot of the time. And a lot of things that I've wanted to do in life, I've been able to do them, and I've either grown through them or grown because they didn't work out for me, or I feel like to develop yourself, you need to experience those things that have been planted in your heart. But if you never get to experience them, how do you get developed? And one of the things I will admit as a 4-year-old woman is I oftentimes feel in certain areas of life very underdeveloped just because I wasn't able to have the experience. And one of my fears is being 50 years old and still having the mindset of a 27-year-old because certain things didn't happen. So what I have been struggling with this year in my 40th year of life is, do I ever grow up? Will I ever feel at home and comfortable in 40 and up spaces? Or will I always feel like a little kid who got dragged there by their big sister, and I'm just going to be quiet and hope nobody calls on me, hope nobody wants anything from me? I know a lot of times when I talk about like my life or things that happen, I just feel like, oh, this is so elementary. This is so rudimentary. There should be more at this stage. You know what I'm saying? And I feel weird because there's not. And so, yeah, my 40th year has definitely been a year where I have just been questioning, when is there going to be more? Is there going to be more? And like I said earlier, how do I grow up? So I'm not an auntie. And I think that's just because I just don't meet the standards and the circumstances to be called that. And I'm also not a girly. Okay. A lot of those things, a lot of those conversations, I'm like, been there, done that. I remember thinking that way. Call me, ladies, when you're 35, and and we'll see what you think then. What am I? What am I? Because the clock keeps ticking. I keep aging, thank God. I'm still in good health most of the time, except for when I try and dance without stretching. I really injured myself earlier this year. Anyway, what am I? And the answer that I came up with was, I'm grown. I'm grown. I may not have a lot of boxes checked off, but it doesn't mean that I have absolutely nothing checked off. So let's talk about, for example, career. So I often feel out of place with other 40-year-olds because I can't say, well, I'm the CEO and director of company. But, I'm in a very Kelly Kapoor way, right? I manage my department. My department is only me. I'm the CEO of my company. I have one employee and it's me, but that still counts, right? So in that way, I can say that if I wanted to. But before I did this job, I was a teacher. I did run a program. I did do creative, this is not my only iteration as a person. So while I'm not standing on 20 years at the same corporate company, I would love that. My 401k would love that. My IRA would love that. That's not my reality. It doesn't mean that I have no experience that I can't look back on and be like, oh my gosh, I've grown. I can see how much of the world I've seen, or how many different things I've been allowed to experience professionally through my choices. Like, I still have experience. It's just not the experience I thought I would have by this age. If we want to talk about financially, I've definitely seen highs and lows. And I think a lot of people, you're always going to have people who are really, really financially gifted. You're always going to have that. And then you're going to have people that are not, and you're going to have some people that are somewhere in between. And I think I'm somewhere in between, honestly. I would love to be further along, but who knows what can happen in a year or 2 years. That's just how I think about it. My life has always kind of gone like that, where you better be prepared to be surprised. That's all I have to say. That's what I say to myself, right? When it comes to like dating and relationships, wave the white flag. I am behind. There's so much I've never experienced, and that is just what it is. But I do have some experience. And when I talk to people, there's people who are 40 years old they've never been kissed. They've never been on a date. And I totally understand how that can happen. So relatably, you know, it could be worse. It absolutely could. But it could also be so much better. So again, like I said, wave the white flag with that one. I definitely do not belong at the big kids table when it comes to dating and relationships. When it comes to kids, I've been open about the fact that I've had fertility issues. I wouldn't know that if I hadn't tried to follow that path and see where it led. So in some ways, I do feel like I crossed that box off. Like, hey, well, you tried, and that's definitely not something that you would have been able to say at 30. So, so the experiences that I do have equal out to me being someone who I consider is just grown. And as a grown person, my whole thing is I get to kind of do what I want, believe what I want about myself. I get to be comfortable with things like being disliked. That's a huge thing. That's a huge part of me growing up as a person is allowing myself to be disliked. I am a reformed people pleaser, and I have gone through a lot of really tough lessons in the past few years. People pleasing is no fun. People pleasing can hurt someone, okay? Being okay with being disliked, being okay with losing people that sit at your table because you speak your truth. And it may not be a truth that is easily palatable, easily swallowable, but you're honest about that. And that was a hard thing for me for many years. And now I'm like, nope, you speak your truth or you suffer in silence. And we're not going to suffer in silence. Knowing what other people feel about you and still continuing to be yourself, that is something that's huge. And I consider myself grown because I have grown into being that type of person. And that's 100% the internet, being on the internet. This job is great exposure therapy for those of us who have rejection sensitivity, because while everybody talks about being authentic and how great it is, the second you're inauthentic that people don't like and don't respect, the amount of negative things you read about yourself, the amount of negative feedback you get is enough to just cause your head to just implode. So if you can keep going, knowing, like, it's easy to be authentic when you're loved for it. It's hard to be your authentic self when you put yourself out there and you're rejected or you get negative feedback or you get pushback. To still push forward and to still say, no, I'm valid. You can have your opinion if you want, but I'm also valid. That to me is grown. And then I also think giving myself the freedom to still be flexible and to still change. I know, like, I have a video on my channel now where I'm like, I'm not dating in my 40s. And to be real with you, I don't know what I might do. I might sign up for a dating app tomorrow, delete it the next day. I might go out somewhere and this is very unlikely, okay? But I might go out somewhere and meet someone nice and I don't know. But allowing myself to have the flexibility to do a lot of things. I think one of the positive things about not having such a fixed identity is you're constantly allowed to make different decisions and choices. And that's definitely something that I commit to, allowing myself to still be flexible and to basically like kind of define myself by my own rules and kind of sit in that. That is what I mean by being grown. Like I said in the title of this podcast, I am not a girl. Someone the other day, I told him I was 24. It was my waitress with the 2002. I said, oh my God, girl, you're only 2 years younger than me. She goes, oh, so that makes you 24? I was like, yeah. And I was sitting with my friend. She's 40 also. And she was just looking like, Stephanie? And I said, okay, fine, I'm 40. And she goes, what? Girl, I was going to believe the 24. She was working for her tip. But, I'm not 24. I'm not 25. I'm not 26. I'm not 27. I'm going to make different decisions about my life because I'm not in that mix. But I'm also not 45 with 3 kids and a husband and a mortgage, and I'm not there either. So I'm not a girl, I'm not an auntie, but I am grown. And I'm trying to accept that label and in it accept myself. And it is a process and it is something that I have to work on every day, but I'm happy that I finally was able to define what this era of my life meant for me because I was confused because I didn't feel like I fit anywhere. Okay, that is the end of this first episode of whatever I've decided to call this podcast. And by the time I post it, you will know what it is. I want to ask you for the comment section below, have you ever been an age and felt like you were either too young or you were too old to be that age? A really quick story. I had a friend in college and we were talking about our first email addresses. And she was like, oh, well, I'm going to type in mine real quick. I said, okay. And it was a Yahoo address. This is back in the days, 2005. It was a Yahoo address. And hers was young Y418 or something like that. And I was like, oh, what's that stand for? And she says, it's young for 18, because I've just always felt like I'm too young for this age. I said, girl, shut up. And she said, why? What happened? And my email at the time was too young for 18, but I like spelled it out. TOYOUNG for what, like, and we were like, whoa. I have a lot of weird things that happen with me like that with people. But anyway, have you ever felt like that? Like you've been in age, you're like, whoa, I'm too young for this. Or you have some people that get to like 18, 19, and they have already had a baby, bought a house. Like they just feel much older than they're supposed to be. You have some people that get to 40, my age, they're already grandparents. So I want to know, like, when you turn the age that you are now, or at the age that you are now, do you feel like you're right where you're supposed to be? Do you feel behind? Do you feel like you've done too much? How do you feel? Please feel free to talk in the comments below. And if this is just something that you're listening to, feel free to, I guess, ruminate on it. I don't know. I don't know how these YouTube podcasts work yet. I guess I'll find out. Anyway, that is all for this episode. Thank you for listening. And if you're watching, as always, thank you for watching. So as you can see, I did eventually come up with an idea of what to call myself. I'm just grown, whatever that might mean. And it basically just means that I'm going to define my journey on my own terms, which I always try and do. But I do think that being on the internet specifically, it's very easy to compare yourself, because you just want to know, am I getting to the right demographic? Or am I appealing to the right people? What is my audience? Where do I fit? It's a process. It's not like something you reach and you just stop wondering about it. It's a consistent process. All right. That is all I have for this video for today. I will, however, be tussling with that existential crisis for as long as I am aging on the internet. And aging in general, I think, is something that I'll be tussling with. But regardless, that is the end of this video. And as always, thank you for watching.
Thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video.